Hi, everybody. Welcome back to the Boostly podcast. This is the podcast that gives you the tools, the tactics, the training, and most importantly, the confidence to go out there and get yourselves more direct bookings. We do a behind the host podcast, and this is where we dive into real stories, real hosts. It's the stuff which they can tell you about their journey and their experience, which you can then take and put into your business, your hospitality business. So it'll save you time, save you money, and ultimately improve your business. And the key thing is the reason we do this is so it makes you realize that you're not alone with hosting. Other people go through similar challenges, similar successes, and as a community, being in hospitality is one of the best things to be in. So hopefully you'll agree. And ladies and gentlemen, today we have a friend of mine. He's an amazing host, Ger from Wales. Ger is a top Welsh host. He's somebody who truly embodies a mindset of continuous learning and adaptation. He's been in hospitality for over 20 years. He's co-authored a chapter in Hospitable Hosts, a best-selling book. He's known for his motivational posts and action driven within the community. He takes on board all of the information and he goes and implements it. And if there's one thing that you can take away from today's podcast, it's going to be that you can't rest on your laurels, that hospitality is always changing and so should you, be ahead of the curves. We're going to dive in. Welcome along, Ger. Thank you for joining me today.
Good morning.
So I know I probably murdered the name of the business there as obviously based in Wales. It's a Welsh name, but just cover the name of your business and where you are in the world.
Yeah, our business is called Rhosydd Bach. Rhosydd being heathland, Bach being small. We actually live in a property called Rhosydd, so the natural progression was to name the business Rhosydd Bach. Wales is a lovely place, but it's not large, but it's got different sections to it. We basically are based on the northwest, a place called Llyn Peninsula, which is lovely, Pen Llyn in Welsh, and it's just off Eryri, which is again English is Snowdonia. So we get lots of people coming here who've been to Snowdonia, or Eryri as we're supposed to call it now, they've changed the name, been to Anglesey and never been any further. So they just carry on going and they end up in an absolute oasis of beauty here. Again, we sell the place on its coastline, 60 miles of lovely coastal path. Some call it like a mini Cornwall, but not as busy.
What is the one thing you want people to take away from listening to this episode on the Boostly podcast?
The one thing I think to take away is to be confident about running a hospitality business, especially in today's climate. There's an awful lot of negativity out there, especially in Wales with tourism tax and 182-day rules, this and that. But you know what? At the end of the day, you've got to look through all that. It's potentially every business has issues, be it in sort of export, imports, manufacturing, and hospitality is getting it now. So just be confident and believe in yourself and believe in the fact that you can actually run a very successful business.
So you've been in hospitality for, you mentioned before we started recording for 20 years. But before we dive into some of the lessons you've learned, can you just give me a couple of minute version of how you got started and what drove you into the hospitality industry?
Yeah, you could say Penllyn is very, very much hospitality driven. We've got some lovely beaches. Abersoch is a very popular place. Pwllheli is world renowned for sailing. So since I was like 10, 12 years old, I've been involved in it. When I was about 16, I went to work at a local attraction. It was a local shooting school, which I helped run, and I actually taught people how to shoot there. And I very, very quickly got to understand that dealing with people who are on holiday is much easier than dealing with people who need stuff. And it's a pleasure for them. They enjoy it. So that was that. And in about 10 years later, when I was about 30, the opportunity arose to buy quite a rural property, an old farm. So I bought this. No intention of opening a hospitality business. But 3 years later, there was a set of outbuildings which we didn't buy, which were adjacent to the farm, and they went on the market. 20 years ago, believe it or not, £18,000. We only paid 40,000 for the house. It's hard to believe. So we bought it. Wife wasn't too happy because I spent all the money we had on restoring the house on buying the buildings. And we
Mhm.
thought, right, what should we do afterwards? We actually bought them to stop anybody else buying them and opening a big barn there or something. So yeah, cut a long story short, we converted them into at that time 3 units. One sleeps six, and one sleeps five, and one sleeps four. It used to be an old pig farm, so they're all joined together, which was quite nice. And yeah, I did most of the renovation myself. I've got background in flooring and interiors, and I'm quite practical, so I could do most of that in between working as well. Yeah, and then at that time we set it up, things have changed a lot. I can remember going out and buying my, I had to have a laptop to do some work in and out, this and that, and buying an Acer Ferrari, which cost me 1,500. And you know, you think how much a laptop costs you nowadays.
Yeah.
You know, I invested what 2.5 grand in a website 20 years ago, and it was lots of money. You had to have it
Mhm.
because we were rural as well. We're about 10 minutes from any beach or the coastline. I think it gives you more drive. You have to work harder to make it work. So 20 years later, we're still here.
So, across those 20 years, what's been the biggest shift that you've seen in the hospitality industry?
I'd say that the biggest shift has been the time scale that people actually come on holiday for. When I first started, I joined a local sort of local group, basically 14 housewives and me, and it was like a farm stay thing. And I joined in and brought some new ideas, this and that. And it's quite strange. In down the road is a place called Abersoch, which most people have heard of, and I think 50% were from that area. And they literally in the summer they only let for a minimum of 14 days. First 2 weeks of my holidays, middle 2 weeks of my holidays, and last 2 weeks. Easter and Whit, and that was it. And when I said I let for going back 20 years, I'd let for 3 or 4 nights. They just looked at me in amazement and said, "Wow, that's not even worth it. We wouldn't do it." So after 3 years, I left the group, and strange enough, I'm still in contact with a few of them, and I help them out with their marketing, and they're now are taking 2 and 3 day bookings.
Yeah.
So the market shifts. I'm not saying it's right, and I'm not saying it's wrong. You know, it's nice to have long bookings. I've just taken one literally this week for 3 weeks in August, which is amazing for me. But then things change, and and you've got to embrace that change as well. No point staying on the same spot, otherwise life just overtakes you.
What's one outdated practice that used to happen a lot 20 years ago that you still see people doing now, which they probably shouldn't be and they need to let go of?
As most people will know, I'm a big supporter of customer persona, customer avatar. I'm also studying for a degree in marketing, so I've looked into that side of things. Um, Years ago, I think people still do it nowadays. It's a case of one box ticks all.
Mhm.
They just like, we've got a holiday cottage. We don't care who we take. We'll take retired people, families, couples, whatever. Now, people must have a much more targeted approach to it. Again, imagine it to having a net and throwing it just a standard net in the sea and dragging it up, and you'll catch a few fish, a bit of this, bit of that, but it's quite low value. Rather than having a specific net going out and targeting a certain species, and catching that certain species which is of greater value. Now, I'm not saying you only take one customer. What you've got to look at 2 or 3 types of customer and target them accordingly. And that's the way forward. Be it retired people, be it couples, be it contractors, as we discussed earlier. But people have got to get out of the mindset and thinking, yes, we'll just take anybody because anybody inevitably is nobody.
Your mindset when it comes to change, how do you, what advice would you have for people who maybe don't have that same change mindset? And what advice can you share of how you deal with change when it comes to business?
It is difficult because we all do what we've always done, and inevitably, if you do that, you will get what you've always had. Now you've got to you've got to change. Change is inevitable, isn't it? So my logic is, you whatever the change is, you've got to embrace it or give it a chance. By embracing it, look into it. Now, again, there's a lot of changes like there's with the CRM. I'm not even started with that yet. I will get to it. But sometimes if people are following change, they try and do everything together. Now, cut it into bite-sized pieces. If you're not, people have never ever gone on social media before. Fine, just set up a Facebook account and do it slowly. Make emailing lists. Just start off slowly. One email every 6 months. Do it in bite-sized chunks. Don't try and do everything together. Otherwise, you'll get overwhelmed. And when you get overwhelmed, what happens? Nothing. You just give up, and soul can go away. And then in 3 months' time, they'll come back again and try it again. Just embrace it. Be positive about it, but do it in small chunks.
What's more important to you in your business? And I expect I know what you're going to say. Is automation more important, or is the personal touch more important? And if so, why?
Personally, I think it's the personal touch, but I'm only a small operator. I've got 4 cottages, because although I've got automation in there, I do think that to retain clients or customers, it's important that you give them the personal touch. That's the difference between us and Booking.com or Sykes Cottages. They one part of automation I do not like is lockboxes. I know they're going to come and it's easy for people, but there was an interesting piece by Deborah Labby a few months back about how she has lots of lockboxes in her properties, but when they arrive, there's an automated video of her welcoming to the property, or she sends somebody over there to welcome them and show them around what's what. And again, I know it's not that is personalization as well, isn't it? People are on holiday and they want to buy into the place. They want to know what to do, where to go, what to see. So I think that I do that because it drives repeat customers. And to me, that is I would never ever drop that over automation.
So what is one action that you think everybody listening to this right now should go and do in their business?
Embrace what they're doing and be positive about what they're doing. Sort of look at your business, look at what the pluses and what the minuses are, and go with that. Do what you're happy in doing. Do what you're happy in doing, and just carry on doing it.
The one thing I'm really taking away from this is that if you're in hospitality, it's about injecting your own personality and just be who you are, but also don't be afraid to start putting stuff out there, testing the waters with all of the new tech and all of the things that you can be using in your business, because ultimately that opportunity is right now compared to 20 years ago. So thank you, Gur, for coming on, sharing your behind the host journey in hospitality. Where can people go to check out your business and find out more about you?
We're obviously, you go to my website, which is prosidbach.co.uk. Again, we're on most of the socials, Facebook, Instagram. If you're in Facebook, I'm always posting in the hospitality group as well as Boostly. So I'm out there. Just search for Ger.
That's cool. And I encourage everyone, we'll add the link somewhere around where you're listening or watching this to go and check out his website. Some beautiful views. If you like rolling green countryside and, really beautiful Wales, then please do go check out Ger's place and go and stay with him. You get to meet him and see what an awesome chap he is. So, Ger, thank you so much for coming on the Boostly podcast today and for sharing your journey. Thank you too for listening to this on the Boostly podcast. We hope you've enjoyed this. If you know somebody else who will get value from listening to Ger's journey, please do share it with them. If not, come and join the hospitality community on Facebook and we can continue the conversation. Thanks very much.
Having a blast, gonna get it on the Boostly podcast. Boostly like Bruce Lee, cause it's so hard and the T is loose leaf. Making up those rhymes, don't write it, just do it loosely.